Good morning, Matis. Good Erev Shabbos, everybody. Tomorrow we have the privilege of reading Parshas Bo. Parshas Bo is such an exciting parsha. Number one, as the Chinuch tells us, we have 20 mitzvos in this week's parsha, 9 positive and 11 restrictions. And this is the parsha that, as the Torah tells us, the pasuk right before Shavi, and it was Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh, on that very day, the 15th day of the first month, that of Nisan, Hotzi Hashem is Bnei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Hashem took the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, Al Siv Osam, in their legions. Wow, this is the parsha of Hashem fulfilling his word to Abraham. He said to Abraham that they're going to be strangers, enslaved, oppressed, in a land which is not theirs. That happened. Afterwards, Yetzu B'Chush Gadol, that happens. And Gamis Hagoy Asher Yavodu, also the nation that persecutes them, Don Anochi, Hashem says, I will judge, meaning I will punish. That happens as well. Now, I'd like to focus on an interesting aspect of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which only happened once in Jewish history. And that is, the Torah tells us that there is a mitzvah to bring the Korban Pesach. This mitzvah, we know, we had as long as we were privileged to have the first and second Beis HaMikdash, and Emeritus Hashem, when we have the third, we will have the actual offering and eating of the Korban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb. However, in Mitzrayim, it was not sufficient for them to simply slaughter the Korban Pesach on Erev Pesach in the afternoon, but as the Torah tells us in chapter 12, verse 6, V'yolochem lemishmeres, that the lamb, the sheep, was to be for you, lemishmeres, for safekeeping. It was to be designated on the 10th day of the month, and it was to be, as we know from our rabbis, tied to their bedposts for many different reasons, including the fact that the Egyptians would hear their God basically bleeding or crying throughout and being restricted, and they were powerless to help it. It also was powerless to help itself. This was all a part of the very important lesson to the Jewish people to uproot the belief in the Egyptian deity, in the Egyptian religion, and it was a form of punishment to the Egyptians. So now the Torah says, it shall be for you, for the Mishmeres, for you to watch it till the 14th day, and then it is to be slaughtered. Now the question is, why? So Rashi brings on this spot the teachings of Rabbi Masya ben Chorash. And Rashi explains why is it that we have here the designating it of 4 days in advance, Mashalot Tziva came Bepesach Doros, a part which is not included concerning the Korban Pesach for all future generations. So Rav Masya ben Chorash answers in the following way, that Hashem saw that this was the time for the Jewish people to be redeemed. However, v'lo hayu biyadam mitzvos lis asek behem. What they were lacking at that time were commandments, mitzvos, with which they should busy themselves, kedei sheyigo'alu, in order that they should be worthy of being redeemed. And to substantiate this, we quote the psukim from Yechezkel, chapter 16, which we recount as well on the night of the Pesach Seder as part of the Haggadah, as the pasuk says, "Va'at erom ve'eria." You, at that time in Egypt, were bare and naked, meaning without mitzvos, and therefore, Rashi continues, Nasan lohem, Hashem gave the Jewish people two commandments, Dam Pesach, the blood of the Korban Pesach, and the blood of circumcision. Now, the rabbis tell us, and we know, that the Jewish people, the males, had to circumcise themselves prior to their leaving of Egypt. The question is, when was the circumcision done? And some say that because there was this 4-day period prior to the actual slaughter, it was done on the 10th, and therefore 3 days is when it's most painful afterwards, and after that we were ready to leave Egypt relatively pain-free. So now we have two mitzvos, that of the blood of the Korban Pesach, which was placed on their door and on the lintel, on the door frame, and that of Korban, that of Bris Milah, as the pasuk says, that you were mispossesses bidonoi mayach. You were wallowing in your bloods, these two bloods, and therefore, as a result of this, Hashem was able to take them out, there having performed mitzvos. Now, I'd like to ask a very basic question. We definitely find, as the Ramban tells us at the end of the parsha, very long and important Ramban. The Ramban says that why did God have to bring the miracles in Egypt? He says because, unfortunately, man's belief in God had become weakened significantly. And therefore, in order to demonstrate without any question that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one who is mashgiach, supervises, and is in control of what's happening here on this earth, that he didn't leave anything to chance. What does it say regarding the various makos? 1, Ani Hashem b'kerev haaretz. I am Hashem who's there in the midst of the land. Not just that I created the world and I let it be without any control. No, I am the one who is running the show. And as it says further, Lamantida kil Hashem haaretz, meaning that there's chidush. Hashem constantly renews nature and does with nature as he sees fit. And finally, Bavur Teda ki in kamoni b'chol haaretz, that there's none like Hashem. So if it's clear that the Jewish people had strong emunah, strong faith in Hashem, why wasn't that sufficient for them to be able to leave Mitzrayim? Why did they need mitzvos? And with that, I'd like to bring us to a very important point, which we find in the Chinuch on mitzvah number 16, whereby the Torah tells us that lo lishbor etzem min haPesach. One of the laws regarding the Korban Pesach was that we were not to break a bone. On the surface, the Chinuch explains the reason for this mitzvah is that we should know that the Jewish people were taken not just from slavery to freedom, which would have been, quote, dayenu. However, we were taken from slavery, from avdus, to aristocracy, to royalty, to malchus, and it is not the nature of kings to break, or princes, to break the bones of a lamb chop in order to try to suck out all the marrow that's found therein. They have an unlimited supply, and they need not suck the bone as only the poor people might do. So tonight we relive the fact that we are aristocracy. Therefore, we have this law of not breaking a bone. But in that mitzvah continues the chinuch, and he says to his son, to whom the book is dedicated, why, you might ask, are there so many mitzvos to help us zecher litzias Mitzrayim? And he answers by saying the very powerful line, Da, you should know, ki adam nif'al kefi pu'ulosav. Man is formed. Man is made into. His character is determined by his actions, not by his beliefs only. The beliefs are important, but the idea is what he does, acharei ha'pu'ulos, after the actions, nimshachim halavavos. And therefore, even if a person's thoughts are negative, but he does positive actions, the positive actions are going to create the positive individual. And if a person, unfortunately, the opposite, does not have positive actions, even if he might have positive thoughts, but his actions are negative, it's going to have that negative effect upon him. As the Ramban tells us by the Akedah, Hashem knew that Avram Avinu would certainly perform the Akedah. Why put him through it? And the answer, says the Ramban, that it's not enough for Avram to have a Lev Tov. He wanted that the thoughts of man should be brought to action, that there should be min hakoach el hapoel, from the potential it should be actualized. The idea behind this very important Rashi, that we needed the two mitzvos, is to teach us the importance of mitzvos. We dare not allow our mitzvos to become simply actions that we do by rote. I did it yesterday, I did it the day before, I did it last year, I did it the year before, but rather, as the Nefesh HaChaim, Reb Chaim Volozhiner, says in chapter 3 of Sha'ar Aleph, you should know that man was given mitzvos, and listen to what he says very clearly, his shlito, as a result of our performing of mitzvos, God has put man in an influential state over kochos v'olamos ein mispar. What does that mean? It means that our actions have an effect upon literally that which transpires in this world. We might not see it, we might not understand it, but know that our performance of mitzvos, which are literally l'mala min hateva, which means that we're not doing the mitzvos because man thinks that they should be done, that man reasons that they should be done. We do it because Asher Kidshanu b'mitzvosav, He sanctified us with His mitzvos. We are doing it because God says so. Whoa, this is that which has an effect upon our doing that which God said, which is l'mala min hateva, which is beyond the norm for man to do. enables God to act with us, l'malam teva. This Rashi, chapter 12, verse 6, teaches us, not just then, in order to leave Mitzrayim, but throughout the generations. And right now, today, our performance of mitzvos is what is going to bring, please God, the Geula bimheira b'yameinu. Shabbat shalom to all.